Donkey Kong may be the strongest platformer protagonist in Nintendo's entire games catalog. I mean, just look at his portrayal in Donkey Kong Bananza. He can run, jump, climb, mine, tear up chunks of the earth itself to use as clubs, projectiles, and surfboards, and that's before getting into some of the crazy abilities his Bananza transformations give him, like gliding, slowing down time, and causing a vortex of total destruction. With all that at his disposal, it makes you wonder. Maybe he doesn't need access to the most staple ability in the whole platformer genre. Jumping. Let's find out. Is it possible to beat Donkey Kong Bananza without jumping? Our rules today are simple. We are not allowed to jump, which in this game is done by pressing the A button on solid ground. Anything else is fair game, including climbing, and this little vault Donkey Kong does when he reaches the top of whatever he's climbing. That is not jumping, nor are any contextual button prompts that happen to use the A button, like striking up a conversation or starting up a minecart. If we can get down to the core and see the credits roll under these limitations, that is a successful challenge in my book. Now let's get into it. Tutorials scare me in these sorts of challenges. Usually in these sorts of games, there's some sort of roadblock the developers put in your way to force you to engage with all of the core mechanics of the game. Usually jumping is amongst the first. But not in Donkey Kong Bananza. Our trip to Ingodisle instead starts off with a punching tutorial. We walk and dig through this mine a bit more until we finally reach our jumping tutorial. Sort of. This device is actually the dive punch tutorial, but naturally you have to be airborne to use a dive punch, which of course implies jumping. But as it turns out, it's actually a pretty weak implication. What we can do instead is climb the adjacent wall, then let go and dive punch from there. I even accidentally discovered the surface when I tried the same approach on one of these later in the mine. Anyway, that leads us to this wealth of bananas, catastrophe, and part 2 of Ingodisle. We dig through into the sinkhole and then climb up this wall. I was then concerned about getting into this cannon, but Donkey Kong vaulted his way up into it pretty easily. We grab the odd rock, then find that our next cannon is not quite so simple to get into. What we could really use here is a step stool or something. However, you can't use rock chunks because you just kick them around instead of climbing on top of them. Dirt, on the other hand, is soft enough to make a stool, which allowed me to use the second cannon. We got some more basic climbing before using another dirt step stool for another cannon, then having to backtrack to get more dirt for this cannon. And then luckily this one we can vault straight into. That brings us to our first sort of boss fight, which is really easy. And that is Ingodisle cleared. Welcome to Lagoon Layer. You can spend a lot of time exploring this first sublayer, or you can just walk straight to the Void Co plug and get down to the next sublayer within a minute or so. Now in this sublayer, you've got to platform around to unplug some stopped water to raise the water level high enough for this pontoon bridge to bring you to the Elder Kong. But that is a process that's going to be pretty tricky without jumping. What you can do instead is throw chunks of dirt at the barge to build a bridge yourself. Now there's the slight issue that once you've crossed, there is another pontoon bridge you have to cross in order to get the record that you need to progress. Luckily, you can just build another bridge in the exact same way, and that gives you the Kong Banaza power and pretty easy access from there to the game's first real boss fight, even without jumping. We also picked up our second skill point, which I used on punch power. The boss fight itself is really easy with basically no need to jump at all. And so it's on to the next layer. The Hilltop Layer is mostly open and pretty easy, though it does feature the chunk jump tutorial. Here's the deal, this mud is slippery so you can't climb it, thus you are expected to use chunk jumps to scale it instead. We obviously can't do that. What we can do instead is destroy the hillside until the Voidco purple metal underneath is surfaced. We can then just climb that instead of jumping. We then creep along the edge here to avoid the spiky balls, clear out the Voidco metal generator, pay the toll, and dive down to the next layer. I was worried about boarding these minecarts on the canyon layer, but that wasn't actually a problem. You can just walk straight into them and you go in. In fact, there weren't really any major problems when we tried to scale the smokestack to make it to the Grumpy Kong boss fight. And yeah, I just sort of climbed the contraption and won here. That got us down into the refinery, where these lasers weren't really much of a problem since we could just dig underneath them. Then we boarded a minecart and quickly found them to be unavoidable and lethal. Yeah, the only way to dodge the lasers here while in a minecart is by jumping. But there aren't really that many we have to get past, and they don't instantly kill you. So I thought perhaps my woes could be solved by real estate. In Donkey Kong Bananza, you can spend gold to build getaways. Sleeping in one restores you to full health, with some extra hearts on top of it, based on how many getaways you've built on the layer. So I built a couple to get my total hearts up to 5, then went mining so I could buy an apple juice can, which restores you to full health when you otherwise would have died. And then I rode the track again, and the lasers didn't quite kill me this time. Next was the boss fight against Mad Mixer, which was on rails with lasers. I had 6 hearts by now thanks to the purchase of another getaway, but I was distinctly racing against the clock in this fight. Here's how it went. There we go. A difficult boss fight, but certainly manageable. And with a bit of climbing, the rest of Canyon Layer was actually pretty easy, including the third boss fight of the layer. Seriously, why were there so many boss fights here? Anyway, just make sure not to dig yourself into a hole unnecessarily while you're fighting it. Unsurprisingly, the divide is extremely easy from a gameplay perspective. The real issue at play here is whether we decide to go to the forest layer or the freezer layer. I mean, we're going to have to do both anyway, but based on my experience from playing through the game normally, the types of obstacles we'll come up against in the freezer layer should be a bit more surmountable than those in the forest layer. So, off we go. The first major obstacle in the freezer layer was self-inflicted. I accidentally created an overhang in a wall I was supposed to climb. Nothing a little digging can't fix. Anyway, we go the rest of the way to the Zebra Elder without much issue, and now have to retrieve 3 record pieces. This one is almost insultingly easy, and this one is more or less the same challenge-wise, just further away. And then there's the one up there on the ice cream. Normally it's just a quick hop, cling, and punch across these ceiling fan-looking things to get there, but we don't exactly possess that sort of dexterity. No, our approach was a touch more industrious. No, this crazy squiggly abomination is not up to code. Don't talk to me about it. What matters is it's got me up to the record, and now we've got the Zebra Bonanza powers. With that boon, we sprint up to fight Poppy Kong pretty easily. And yeah, her fight's pretty easy too. I mean, her whole gimmick is turning invisible, and yet Nintendo gives a little pin UI element to track her position in the fight. Sorry, Poppy, I guess the devs just have it out for you. Nothing really too crazy awaits in the lower, more fire layers of the layer. Not even the boss, really. Though being unable to jump over the lava trails is mildly annoying. And with that, we're off to the next layer. Okay, so in terms of what we have to actually do here, it's pretty easy. Just don't stop moving, and these turrets never hit you. And there we go. That's half the junction cleared. We do need both halves cleared to progress, however, which means we need to go back up and take the route to the forest layer now. And again, given what I know about the construction of that layer, I'm not exactly excited. But I did get some practice building in Freezer Layer. And it's not inconceivable that I could build a bridge to the other side of the junction, right? Well, 45 minutes of construction later, it's not so much a bridge as it is a stairway to heaven. But if you run off the top of it, chunk surf, drop the chunk, and grab, you can just barely cling to the other side of the junction. Climb around, and just like that, both sides of the junction have been cleared without even having to go to the forest layer at all. Anyway, now we've got to confront Void Kong in the Hilltop Layer, which was easy, the Lagoon Layer, which was a bit tougher, and the Junction, which was actually sort of difficult. This opening stretch of lava in particular was kind of rude. Freezing it helped somewhat, though. Him blowing up his own lava wall at the end also helped considerably. And with that, it's on to the next layer. As soon as I can actually get into this barrel. Oh well, nothing a few tumors can't fix. Resort Layer has liftoff ore and a bunch of floating islands you've got to navigate around. It'll probably be pretty tough from a no-jumping perspective. Or, you could swim to the giant watermelon in the middle and just climb up. I think we'll do that. So before we get into the layer itself, let's do a quick skill check. I've maxed out my punch power and increased my health by 1. Anyway, we've got to venture down into this lava-infested cavern to grab a pair of record pieces. The first is really easy to get to. I was worried boarding these zip lines might be tough, but actually all you have to do is just walk off the edge and you attach no problem. Now for the second one, you've got to figure out how to get over there. Oh, wait, DK, what are you doing? Well, okay, I guess that worked. Now you've just got to use these guys to vault up and deactivate the Void Code tech, and then from there, you fly. Now a zipline takes you straight to the record, and with that, get ready for Elephant Bonanza. So yeah, in this boss fight, I don't think I jumped even during my normal playthrough. And the rest of the layer, it's basically all about sucking stuff up in your trunk. Not exactly much in the way of precise platforming, really. And so, it's off to the next layer. Dig down. It's really that simple. Racing Layer is home to the Ramby Rumble, which jumping is somewhat important in. But we don't need to actually participate in the race. All you've got to do to skip it is suck up this liftoff ore, retrieve it from your trunk storage here, fall with style onto the racetrack, walk around it for half a lap or so, then tear up this chunk of liftoff ore from this ramp, and climb the trophy. Then just like that, the next layer awaits. Radiance Layer starts off pretty straightforward. It's basically a beat 'em up with this light gimmick. Then things take a turn when you meet the Snake Elder. His record is broken into 4 pieces, each of which is hidden in an art installation, and some of those art installations have obstacles within them that are, well, not going to be easy to surmount without jumping. But we've got to at least try, right? Well, not if there's another way. There's a lot of sand in this layer, and sand is a very good building material. It's not at all difficult to build a ramp onto the roof of this covered walkway. Unfortunately, the enemies atop it are best dispatched with either the Snake Bonanza power, or at the very least a chunk jump. We can't do either. But we can actually just walk past them. Yeah, and it's not really actually all that dangerous, even. And there we go. The key is now just above us, taunting us from up there. We can bring chunks over here one at a time to start building a tower, but you can't build directly on top of the Void Co capsule. You can build right next to it though, and if you use the trunk storage from your Elephant Bonanza transformation, you can bring loads of materials up in very few trips. There does, however, seem to be a limit as to how high you can build, and it keeps the key just out of reach. Sure, you can't grab it while standing atop the tower, but a vault from climbing the tower yields just enough height to nab it and unlock the next sublayer. So there we go, progress made without needing the Snake Bonanza power. But we're not out of the woods yet, because this tower is designed entirely around the use of the Snake Bonanza transformation. The normal route up is completely impassable for us. I guess we could technically build a tower within the tower, but that is so high up. Though I think I might have a solution to that problem. Child labor! You see, Donkey Kong Bananza has a two-player mode, where one player plays as Donkey Kong like normal, while the other plays as Pauline. Pauline has the ability to shout with the strength of a Dovahkiin, but she can also copy materials to enhance her shouts. Most helpfully, she can copy soft materials like sand to build with her shouts. That's not to say it's an easy process though. Unlike in, say, Super Mario Galaxy, where shooting starbits was done from the perspective of the camera, Pauline's shouts come from, well, Pauline. This can make it difficult to get the right angle for your shouts, especially when you're building something that you're standing on top of. But in this case, you don't actually need to worry about that, because if you cast your eyes upwards, you can instead build from the top down. And just like that, you skip all the snake obstacles and climb straight up to the source of the Void Co corruption. We can break the seal pretty easily, but actually punching the device is a whole nother story. However, if you get the right camera angle, Pauline can build a sand ramp straight up to it. Once it's broken, things go much smoother until we reach this spire that we have to destroy by getting to the top of. Normally you'd Snake Bonanza up there, of course, but we can't do that. What we can do is put a few well-placed fractone chunks, allowing us to build a ladder of sorts up to where we need to go. Finally, we face Grumpy Kong in a harder fight, no doubt, but one that doesn't really call for jumping. Though our celebration is unfortunately cut short. On to the next layer, I guess. Welcome to prison. Luckily, breaking out is as simple as digging down. Getting to the higher levels of this complex looked a bit more daunting, but you can dive punch these fractones to get an elevation boost, which is not a jump. We break Poppy Kong out and head to the dance floor. There are 3 elements of the music we've got to free in order to lure the Great Harmonial back onto the dance floor, starting with the beats. Literally all you have to do is walk down a hallway. Though you can't simply vault over this Wallopoid, luckily you can use this fractone to get some purchase. Now it's all about that base. Once again, the only real obstacle is Wallopoid, but this time there's no fractone we can use to get atop it. There is gravel though, but we can't build with it because it won't stick to this surface. But if it's wedged against the Wallopoid, we can actually use it as a stool even in chunk form. Here we use gold to do the same thing as we did with the gravel last time. However, this Wallopoid comes afterwards, and it was a bit tougher. You can only get atop it if the chunk you're using is gold, because otherwise you just bounce off it. But you need the Wallopoid to be rubber in order to be able to bounce up to the platform. You can switch between the two materials with this harp, but I couldn't get the throw rate to switch them once I was on the Wallopoid. But the solution here is actually a lot simpler. You just climb on this pillar. That's all you have to do. And with that, the music is restored, the Great Harmonial summoned, and Pauline has been recovered. On to the next layer. Feast Layer is all about building this massive burger using switches that are locked behind various obstacles or other challenges. And yes, we do actually need to flip those switches. We can't just skip the whole layer this time. Let's get to it then. Switch 1 is a free space, no problem whatsoever. Switch 2 is at the Greater Go Round, a challenge built on the Zebra Bonanza where we've got to execute a salt assault without us halting. No jumps involved though. Switch 3 is at the Kingly Swings. Normally you'd use your Ostrich Bonanza to glide from swing to swing to scale to the top. We don't have the Ostrich Bonanza though, so we'll have to take a different tact. That different tact specifically will be building a series of potato ramps using Pauline's magic shouts. It's time consuming, but it works. Switch 4 is on the Royal Oil Cruise, which mostly just tests your throwing skills. No jumps to be found here. And then there's Switch 5 at the Ferocious Fry House, which features the return of the Mad Mixer. Great. Just like last time, there are lasers present, which puts us on a time limit. Unlike last time, however, our ammunition for this fight is above the tracks instead of on them. This is so you can decide between salt to deal with the slimes and explosive rocks to deal with the boss in the course of the fight. But for us, it means we can't damage the boss without jumping at all. Or at least Donkey Kong can't. Pauline, though, she can copy those materials, then shout at the boss. But even so, I still couldn't deal enough damage within the time limit. But that time limit is flexible. We can extend it by sleeping in a getaway beforehand, and by unlocking more getaways to increase the heart bonus. We can also grab some Banandium gems to get skill points to spend on increasing our max health. Additionally, we can buy some apple juice from the stuff shop to give us a revive or two. So yeah, we set about doing just that, and then came back prepared. There we go. Just shows what a little preparation can do for you. From there, it's a straight shot to Muckety Muck, which was a hectic fight, but especially after all the prep we did for the last fight, it was far from unmanageable. Although actually we're not quite ready for Forbidden Layer just yet. First, we need to backtrack and mine a whole bunch of gold. That process obviously isn't difficult in the slightest, it just takes some time. Once we've acquired enough gold, we just have to pay some tolls to the Secure Tones to secure passage to the Banandium route. But first, Pauline's gotta build some bridges for us. After we cross them, it's time to face Void Kong. It's another super chaotic fight, but if you throw with accuracy during the first part, it's not too bad. Once you actually get to the mainland, things get a lot crazier, but you can use these enemies to your advantage, as well as Void Kong's own projectiles. Not to mention a healthy amount of chunk surfing. And that is not actually the final boss defeated. Yeah, after a bit of skullduggery on Void Kong's part, Pauline ends up freeing King K. Rool. So, guess we're going after him now. The planet core is a long gauntlet with a lot of combat, but most of it isn't too hard. Though of course most isn't all. But before we get into that, look at my skills. It's not really a fancy selection, but it's a fine selection of real workhorse skills, I'd say. Anyway, the Neki Skyway is annoying because if they cut you off, you're dead. Luckily, you can take them out from a distance, and failing that, you can bait them to attack more advantageous positions on the Skyway. Claptrap Crossing is actually pretty tricky too. My recommendation is to let this first one extend all the way, then climb atop it, then roll and run for your life. And for this one, make sure you get the wall Claptrap to bite itself before climbing. This area is like all spikes, but a bit of chunk surfing can get you across safely, as can some mid-air rolls. Kremling Quagmire is also basically all spikes, though that's not much of a problem when you use the Elephant Bonanza to suck them all up. Finally, we face King K. Rool at the Banandium route. And honestly, the fight's not too bad. Just be sure to use that Kong Banaza to punch his balls when the opportunity arises. But K. Rool's not quite done yet. We also have to fend him off during the escape. In theory, he could destroy a lot of the platform, pressuring us to jump, but in practice, we can just throw bananas at him to keep him at bay. But the chase is not over, because with a single wish on the Banandium route, K. Rool has conquered/destroyed New Donk City. No matter, we'll just not use Ostrich Bananza power to glide across these vents. Okay, that's a problem. And there's really nothing on this rooftop that can help us. We can suck up the banana mush, but that material is explosive, so we can't really use it to build or anything. Pauline can copy this wood, but you can't build with wood either for some reason. Like, what the heck, Nintendo? What sort of logic is that? We can run across this rotten banana mush to the first girder, but then it starts sinking, and now what? So is this it? What is that, the final sequence, really? Like, I'm looking around and there's nothing. Nothing but bananas, the little garden box, which has grass in it. Pauline, we can build with that. Okay, and build, and build, and build, and build, and build, and build, and build we do. This ought to be enough, probably. From here we can dive off, zebra, elephant, Kong, build, and die. Yeah, that rising tide really kind of snuck up on me. And now we've respawned here with no building materials. I think we might be stuck. I really don't see how we can cross here without building a bridge. Oh no, are we going to have to restart this whole sequence? Please no. But before we give up, there is this one sort of crazy idea that might have a slight chance of working. Zebra on the ball. That's the plan. And it worked! Okay, now these gaps are unsettling, but you can climb the walls instead. Now run, zebra run. And there we go. We're in the ring. And you know what? This boss fight is actually pretty similar to the K-Rool Phase 1. And that means no jumping required. So yes, it is possible to beat Donkey Kong Bananza without jumping. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, there's plenty more where that came from. We've got plenty of challenges on other Nintendo games on this channel, such as Mario Kart World without collecting coins. Who knows, we might even revisit Donkey Kong Bananza again. This was a pretty fun game to do a challenge on, so if you have any ideas for other challenges, leave them in the comments. And be sure to subscribe and ring the notification bell so you can be alerted when we do that. Or something else equally fun. Or if you want to just see me play through the game normally, my stream VODs of my first playthrough are up on my Let's Play channel. I'd also like to thank my patrons who got access to this video early to help make this channel a reality. I'd especially like to thank my $15 tier patrons, Alex Oxling and Ashron Says. But anyways, until next time, I've been CMeeCraft, and I'll catch you in the next video. Goodbye.